Hello, welcome to Heal Your Shadow Relationships. And I am your host, Neola Sparkus. And today we have with us the beautiful, wonderful soul and spirit, Kute Blackson. And I am just going to tell you that he is an utterly unique visionary in the world of human potential, because others may promise people to get what they want, but Kute's life work instead reveals to people what they have to give by liberating who they are most truly and deeply. So the focus is on freedom, just freeing yourself of the conditioned responses that have been scripted by family, society, institutions, media, and then you will no longer be limited by the pre-programmed interactions in the course of living. And as Kute says, life then becomes an expansive, jazzy improvisation that he calls free fall. So I am so happy to have you with us here today, Kute. Welcome, and thanks for being present for our interview.
Thanks for having me.
I just loved reading on your website about your beautiful multicultural background. You were born in Ghana, so tell us a little bit more about that.
I was born in Ghana, West Africa. My father's from Ghana, my mother's Japanese. I grew up in London most of my life, and then I came to the US when I was 19 with 2 suitcases, and 1 suitcase filled with clothes, 1 suitcase filled with, books and tapes and, of my favorite authors and teachers. And my first memories as a young boy was literally 2 things: feeling a deep calling to serve humanity. I always felt this knowing in my heart that I was here to make a difference on this planet and serve people and impact people and inspire people to dream and just be. This was like an energy in my heart as a young boy, and I remember that feeling very deeply. And also as a young boy, I remember one of my first visual memories was literally seeing a crippled woman crawling on the floor. And I was this chubby kid lost in the crowd. And this woman picked up the sand of this man that was walking in Ghana, West Africa, wiped it on her face and stood up. And it was a miracle. So week after week, I grew up seeing blind people see and deaf people hear, and people stand up out of wheelchairs, and, cancer being cured. And this man was my father. So I grew up in an environment of possibility, an environment of the miraculous, the environment where there were no real limits. So for me, that was normal. And as a kid, I'd always wonder, I tell people about what I'd experienced at school, and my friends and teachers, everybody thought I was crazy. And I'd always wonder, how comes we live in a world where this is considered strange and people don't believe that such things are possible, when in fact it's, the miraculous, the infinite nature of things is really natural. It's our natural state when we're in the flow. So that was really just how I grew up. And, age 8, I started speaking in my father's churches. My father has about 300 churches in Ghana, West Africa, 1 in London. 14, I was ordained as a minister. I was supposed to take over his whole spiritual organization and given a mandate to be the successor. And it was announced, and it was a big ceremony. But I knew in my heart that there was a deeper calling. And even though I felt called to make a difference, I knew that it wasn't necessarily through the structure of religion. It wasn't necessarily through this organizational structure. But I said yes because, it was all I knew. And I said yes because I wanted my father's love and approval, and what else was there? And as I started reading many self-help transformational books, my eyes just opened. And one day I read a book by a man called J. Krishnamurti that exploded my consciousness, and he talked about how a free mind is not a conditioned mind, and I could really relate to his background, and that really sparked something in me that took me about 4 years or so to develop the courage to really own and acknowledge my truth, really own and acknowledge what I felt. And my fear was I'd be disowned. My fear was I'd be outcast. My fear was my father wouldn't speak to me again. And so after about 4 years, I knew what I had to do. I knew if I followed the safe route, that I'd be miserable, that I could feel a part of my soul dying. I knew if I suppressed what I truly felt in my heart, I I would be living a lie. And took me about 4 years, but once I got the courage, I felt this deep knowing inside that I had to follow my heart. I had to follow my truth. And I did. Had a conversation with my father and said, I'm not taking over. We didn't speak for a while. And even though there was much sadness and much pain for me and feeling outcast and rejected, there was this deep internal peace, because I believe that when we follow our deepest authentic truth, our deepest soul's intelligence, there's a knowing, there's an alignment, and life unfolds from there. And I think when we don't speak the truth to ourselves, when we suppress parts of ourselves and disconnect and deny and shut down, then we bring ourselves out of alignment, and we lose touch with the full range, the full expression of our soul, the full expression of our being. So I took the leap and left everything behind. And there was a peace inside of my heart, knowing I had myself. At least if I had nothing else, I had me. And even if I didn't have my father, even if I didn't have the support of the community, I had myself, and that was a peace, inside my heart. So then I came to America. Cut a long story short, won a green card, came to America, and the rest brought me here.
And we're so grateful that you followed your heart and followed your path. What a unique perspective you have to be raised knowing that miracles are the natural state of being. It's so unique. As you say, most people think that stuff's crazy, and the natural way is kind of suffering and struggling and not understanding why things are not flowing. So I welcome your fabulous, unique perspective, and you're talking about your journey of getting past your fears of being ostracized by your family, your people, your community, the community you're raised with, and certainly it takes a tremendous amount of courage to get through that. And it took you 4 years to face that, and granted, you were quite a young man when you were doing that. And so I just so respect that kind of courage. Now, that speaks to me of what the shadow is made up of. It's made up of all of these fears that you're talking about that holds us back. And sometimes we're not even aware that we're being run by them. Yeah. So I was going to ask you the question, what do you think a shadow relationship is? Because we're here talking about relationships today.
Yeah, you talked about we're often being run by things we're not aware of. And I think to talk about it fully, to have an understanding of, many times we think we have free will, we think we're choosing, we think we are living our life. But if we're not consciously fully aware, then we don't really have free will. We're being run by the unconscious programming of our past. As children, we're born free. We're born in touch with a sense of aliveness. You look at a child, you look into a child's eyes, there's a aliveness, there's a spark of the divine, there's light that is shining, that reminds us all of who we are, reminds us all of our own natural state, that many times as we enter life and we deal with parents and abuse and abandonment and school and media and all these difficult things that life brings, as children, we start slowly learning to disconnect, to shut down. We start learning a certain way of being in the world to kind of avoid the pain, to not feel the pain, to not feel the hurt of our parents not being around, to not feel the rejection, to not feel the pain of being abused or having certain emotional needs met. So we start learning a whole mechanism, way of being to not get hurt, to not feel the pain, but we also start developing a persona, start developing a mask, ultimately it's a survival strategy in the world that we start developing in order to fit in, to be loved, to be validated, to be approved, to, who do I need to be in order for you to love me? Well, if I'm this way, if I'm nice, if I can't be myself. So we start learning a way of being in the world where we suppress parts of ourselves and we disconnect from parts of ourselves, ultimately to survive, to function, to not get hurt, to be loved and approved. And we push parts of our feelings that maybe weren't fully embraced. Like for me, growing up in the church, I had to suppress my sexuality, and because the preacher's kid, so that went into the shadow, so to speak. And that was so suppressed as a kid, even though it was present. I had to just pretend that wasn't a part of me, you know? So we do all these things, and then we become this person that we think, this is who I am. It's just me. So the question I always ask people is who you are really who you are? Is it truly who you are, or is it who you've been conditioned and programmed to be based on your childhood, based on the past? And I think it's so important that we become aware of what we're not aware of. And many times, if we're not aware, then we enter into relationship from this unconscious place. And when we enter into a relationship from this unconscious place, we're not really choosing. We're not really consciously choosing our partners. It's almost like the stuff that's unresolved from our childhood, the stuff that's unresolved growing up, the wounds we carry, we attract partners that somehow interact perfectly with that. We attract partners that we get to unconsciously work out the stuff that was unresolved growing up. So to me, a shadow relationship is where we're not conscious ultimately of what we've suppressed and who we are, because we've suppressed so much stuff into the shadow, and from that place enter into a relationship without being truly aware, without being truly conscious. And then we're in this dynamic that's not really authentic, because we're not being authentic. And then my shadow and someone else's shadow is just playing itself out. So to me, the real path of relationship, I believe that we attract to ourselves who and what we are. We attract to ourselves a mirror manifestation of aspects of our own consciousness that we most need to love, to integrate. For instance, as a kid, I suppressed so much of my sexuality that, sure enough, one of the first women I fell in love with, madly in love with, thought this is the one, had this intense connection, Many times when we think, oh, I'm in love, many times it's not really love. We think it's chemistry. It's more like, everything that happens to us as children is stored in our nervous system. Every single memory, every single event, every single thing our parents said is stored in our nervous system. So many times when we meet someone and we feel like, oh, I feel like I've known this person my entire life. I feel like he's the one, it feels so familiar. But it's really the sense that the stuff in my nervous system that's in the shadow, that's unresolved, is kind of resonating with the stuff in your nervous system, and it fits. It feels familiar. Oh, wow, maybe I grew up with the sense of love is aloofness, love is disconnection, love is pain. So we attract that kind of similar patterning based on our unconsciousness, and that fits together, and we often think, I'm in love. And it's not necessarily chemistry, I don't know if I can say this, but we often say it's chemistry. I call it shittistry. It's like my stuff, my shit connects with your shit, and it attracts together to ultimately work out. And I found that, love brings up everything unlike itself in order to be healed, brings all of that stuff to the surface to be healed and cleared and transformed into the light. Everything we have suppressed that ultimately makes us disconnected, makes us feel not alive, makes us feel depressed because we're suppressing so many parts of ourselves, and disconnects us from the full expression of who we are. So I think relationship is an amazing path where we attract aspects of ourselves that often we have suppressed into the shadow, and that cause us and force us to own those parts of ourselves. So I attracted this woman into my life that was incredibly disconnected from her sexuality, incredibly suppressed from her incredibly. And I thought, why am I attracting this? And when I looked at it, I realized, wow, my own suppression, my own disconnection that I've put into the shadow is my own sexual expression, because unconsciously that's not spiritual, it's not good, it's not pure, it's not, allowed, being a preacher's kid. So for me, it was a process of having to see, wow, what parts of myself have I shut down? And re-embracing those parts. And I think when we can do that with a conscious understanding that relationship is about evolution, relationship is about growth, relationship is about two people coming together in a similar space with a similar intention and growing and evolving together, revealing to each other those parts that we suppress, bringing those to light, healing those, transforming, and coming together from that place, then I think we can truly stand the opportunity to have a foundation of a relationship that isn't about shadow and shadow interacting, but more about light and the true authentic expression of our beings coming together.
There you go. Well, you said so much right there, and I wanna unpack some of that. I mean, it was just
Sure.
absolutely beautiful. First of all, if you're not aware of your shadow, you're just going to attract it. So, people who might say, "No, I just want to attract my authentic love. I don't want to go through that." Well, you have to work on yourself to get to your authentic self. But then again, you say that if we attract that person who represents everything that we don't own in ourselves, that's the opportunity to become aware of yourself and to become aware. So the issue in relationship is to watch out for what you are, and I'm going to put this in my own words, for what you might be blaming the other person for.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that's probably a clue. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, I don't like this about you, or you're doing this too much, or
Yeah.
you're not doing that enough.
Yeah.
Okay, how can I turn that around and see
Yeah.
what in me
Yeah.
am I not owning that might be like that? And I hear people say so many times, oh, but I'm nothing like that.
Especially if there's a charge, you know, especially if there's like a reaction, especially if there's an intense, to me, that activation that usually points to there's something that we're seeing out there, projecting out there, that we've either disowned about ourselves and suppressed into the shadow, or there's some part we're not owning or embracing about ourselves that we get to embrace, that we need to embrace.
So there is a process that needs to happen as to how can you start looking at yourself honestly and courageously and becoming aware of that which, you know, you have no clue, because your defense mechanisms
Yeah.
keep you from wanting to see that in yourself. I mean, you are very open and you are willing to admit and look inside of yourself. But what would you say to somebody who just doesn't see it? How can you bring it about for them to get some awareness on themselves?
Well, I would say, you know, one thing is to, in relationship, look at what you continue to recreate. Look at what you continue to attract. Because if you're attracting, many times I'll hear people's clients say, you know, I keep attracting the same type of person over and over and over again. To me, that's a clue. Look at start becoming aware of some of the reoccurring patterns, the reoccurring themes, the reoccurring similarities that you keep attracting. To me, that shows you what's unresolved, and that's usually a clue. And look at those areas, and usually they're connected to areas of pain. You know, areas, if you keep attracting a man that constantly cheats, or a man that is emotionally unavailable, or you know, look at those parts. And I think that can then point you to looking inside and start becoming aware inside. And I think awareness is a key, but also telling the truth to yourself and really having the courage to look at yourself with compassion and to tell the truth to yourself about where you are at and where you are not, and have the courage to own those parts of yourself. If you look out there and you see someone and you judge that person, and to have the courage to go, okay, where is that me? It's easy to say, well, that's nothing like me, that's not me, I'm nothing like that. But to have the courage to say, okay, how am I like that? Or how would I want to be like that? That I'm not admitting. Because many times we see someone and we because we've disowned that part of ourselves, maybe someone that is very open, or a woman that's very in touch with her sensuality and radiance, or you know, a man that's very in touch with his masculine energy, and it's easy to look and go, that's wrong, or that's bad, or what have you. But sometimes we just need to look and go, how do I actually want to be more like that I'm not owning? And to have the courage to tell the truth. You know,
that's
it really
brilliant.
takes a lot, because we often don't tell the truth to ourselves based on the defense mechanisms we've created to survive, and we sometimes unconsciously think we can't afford to tell the truth, because to tell the truth will start to unravel the mechanisms that we've created to function and survive. So it takes real courage to step one, to be aware, and then to tell the truth, and then to also begin bringing loving and compassion to that part of ourselves that you could say the aspect of ourselves that started to suppress, that started to disconnect, that begun to do that survival mechanism in the first place, to have compassion for that. Because what I found is many times we look at that part of ourselves that disconnects us, and we start judging it. Something's wrong. This is not right. I want to change it, and we beat ourselves up and we judge it. But it's so important that when we become aware and we tell the truth, to hold that part of ourselves with such compassion, because it was trying to do something for us that was positive. It was trying to keep us safe. It was trying to avoid, we shut a part of ourselves down because we wanted our parents' love and approval. We disconnected from our vibrancy, our sensuality, our aliveness, our whatever it might be, to get something, and that was all we knew how to do at that stage, which was often 5, 8, 10, 11 as a young child. So to be able to realize the positive intention of why those parts of ourselves have done what they've done and suppressed other parts of ourselves, and to then bring compassion, to bring healing, to bring loving, to bring light to those parts, and allow the energy that's underneath to be liberated.
Yes. No. So that is just totally brilliant. First of all, if we don't own something in ourselves, to look for a pattern, and if we can see the pattern, and we might say, no, that's not me. Ask yourself what part of you might be like that, or how might you want to be that? I mean, these are brilliant tips. These are great to ask yourself. And then, as you said, to tell the truth to yourself, which that can be a process too. And it's really great to journal on these things, to write if you're a writer, or just talk to yourself or whatever, with compassion. Because as you said, behind each one of these, I'll call them disowned parts of ourselves, the shadow, which is what we're talking about, there's a lot of pain. Somewhere there is pain. We shut down because of pain. We don't just shut down, out of, certainly never out of joy, right? There is something there. And sometimes in the process of getting in touch with that truth, you will shed some tears. You will sometimes reenact that pain. And so many of us don't want to go there. It feels frightening. It feels hurtful. And like you say, if it happened to us when we were 5 or when we were 8, we didn't have the skills or the tools to deal with it at that age. Mm-hmm. So that's where the compassion for ourselves comes in. That's very beautiful, the way that you put that.
That's where the healing comes. And then, as we feel that pain, as we feel the grief of shutting down a part of ourselves, or as we feel the sadness underneath what we've disowned, then more energy is released, more light is released, more freedom is released. And to me, then we can start accessing the more full rainbow spectrum of light that we are, the full spectrum of light and dark, the whole range of our own expression as human beings, the full range of power and energy from the light to the dark, and then it gives us, I think, the capacity to have access. That doesn't mean we'll always be in light or dark, but just to have the access, the door open. Otherwise, it's like having this incredible mansion without having this amazing, 20-bedroom mansion and never going upstairs and keeping the door locked on the whole upstairs portion. Mm-hmm. It's there, but we just don't want to go there. Then we don't have the full range of our own capacity.
Right. Well, that's beautiful. And that's the idea behind your spiritual liberation, exactly. Free fall. You called it free fall, to free fall your way through life, because then you have access to all of your power, all of your energy. So I'd love to ask you about when people get into a shadow relationship and they are attracting the person and they're trying to work out what part of that person is something they need to own in themselves and embrace. Can that relationship become the soulmate relationship of your life as long as both people are willing to continually work on what is theirs, to open up? And of course, well, let me hear you say what you have to say about that.
Yeah, I think, as I said, we attract to each other. I believe ultimately there is no relationship out there. To me, we attract to physical embodied manifestations of aspects of our own consciousness that we most need to heal, resolve, integrate, learn with, and evolve through at this particular time. And that can be for a year, a day, 2 hours, 2 years, 20 years, 14 lifetimes. It just depends. And I think relationship, we come together to grow and evolve. And that's why we attract each other. So I think even though you might come together in the shadow, now your class is in session together. And many times, because we don't come together with the true understanding of the evolutionary process and gift and power of what relationship is, we think just to fall in love and live happily, and that's it. But to me, relationship is a yoga. Relationship is a profound spiritual path of transformation where you get to see parts of yourself reflected to you. You know, like you can read a book at home and just theorize, but all of a sudden in a relationship with a partner, with a soulmate, with in a shadow relationship, you're now getting feedback, immediate feedback about where you are at, immediate feedback about your emotional state, immediate feedback about your limits on love, where you collapse, immediate feedback about where you shut down, where you avoid intimacy, where you're afraid. You're getting immediate feedback reflected to you in the form of another. And I think if we can have the understanding to enter into relationship with the understanding that it is a profound conscious spiritual path of evolution, and then we can actually, rather than just doing it, trying to get certain needs met from our partners that weren't met from our parents, get certain unconscious needs met that are based on our wounding from our childhood, then we can go into it with that understanding. This is a conscious path. And when both partners enter into relationship with that understanding, then I think no matter how challenging, no matter how shadow painful, you can then realize this is about growth. The real success of the relationship isn't just about how happy we feel in the moment and how many roses I get and woo, everything is great, but it's about to what degree am I growing and evolving and becoming conscious and becoming the fullest expression of my true, soul's magnificence. And I think that is part of the gift. And when we go into relationship with that awareness, two people, then I think you definitely have the potential to do relationship as a spiritual practice, as a healing path.
Yeah.
And then even when things come up, even when issues come up, because you're going to get triggered. To me, even if you met your perfect ideal, like fantasy soulmate, the perfect man, the perfect woman, stuff is going to come up. Stuff is going to get triggered. And I think part of it is also asking yourself, okay, is this the person I feel enough of a connection with? Is this the person I feel enough alignment with, enough destiny with, enough, whatever you want to call it, something with, to work through my stuff with?
I call it commitment.
Commitment, and both of you having the commitment to saying, I recognize what relationship is. And the path it is. Yes, I recognize what it is, and I commit to serving your growth and holding you through that as well as holding myself. Yes, I commit to you and your evolution as well. And both of you, if consciously then choosing to evolve through the stuff that will come up, up together and evolving through that together, then I think you can actually have a different, even if it's shadow and you've come together from that place, then I think you can have a whole different relationship with relationship itself. So it's not just a relationship, but a different relationship with relationship, and then your relationship can be held in a different container as you deal with the stuff that comes up, because it is going to come up. And many times your soulmate, your life partner will not, I think, come to you in the neat package that you might want, the neat package you might think. True soulmates will often come to you in the least expected package that ultimately are designed to assist your soul in growing the most. Yes. And to me, that doesn't mean you'll be together forever. It just means you are together for as long as that assignment is in place. You'll be together for as long as you're both growing and evolving. You're both committed to evolving. And as long as the lessons that you and that other individual are still in play together, as long as you're still working out those lessons. And that could be your entire life.
It could work. It could happen. As long as each partner is providing a safe space for the other person to feel like they can bring their true self to the party. It's because it should be a party.
For sure.
So, Kute, a half hour has just whizzed by. I would love to talk to you forever, but I know we have so much that we could just keep going on about. But I want you to tell our viewers about, you have an amazing seminar coming up called the Man Breakthrough Experience.
In a nutshell, because I could talk about the seminar forever. I'm very, very passionate about it. We have a seminar coming up that I do in October in Los Angeles called the Man Breakthrough Experience. And it's really specifically a seminar for women that we launched about 2 years ago. And many women would come to me as my one-on-one clients, and I would assist them. Inevitably, what would come up was their relationship issues and challenges with men. And as I guided them through that and unraveling and healing and transforming, the women kept asking me, would I be open to creating a process for women? For the longest time, I had no interest, and it just kept happening. And over time, I felt a calling to create a process for women, and that became the Man Breakthrough. And even though it's called the Man Breakthrough, it's about helping women decode and understand men, transform the hidden blocks that might keep you as a woman from attracting love in your life. And from that place, being your authentic self and creating an authentic life based on who you truly are. So it's called the Man Breakthrough, but I just use relationship. You know, we've been talking about relationship. I just use relationship and the theme of men as a bridge to a woman to have a conversation ultimately with her about herself. And as we talked about, relationship is an incredible part of evolution and often brings up those patterns and aspects of yourself that often play out in every area of your life. And we get to transform and work with and heal those patterns that come up in relationship for a woman and clear those. And we just peel those layers away during this 2.5-day weekend process. And it's really incredible. Ultimately, it's a breakthrough for a woman with herself, not with a man, with herself. Because I believe that and what I found in the 2.5 days is so powerful, as each woman peels away those layers that she may have been unconscious of, those layers of emotion, and just peeling those layers away, each woman gets in touch with the essential true nature of her being, that is love. And what's so beautiful is seeing, as a man, witnessing 150, 200 women go through a weekend and seeing the women reconnect to their true essence as love itself. It's like, whoa, I am love. I've been looking for love. I've been trying to seek, attract, get love, but I am love. And I believe that when each woman is in that place of being that essence of love, then there's nothing she has to seek and find. As she bees that, then you as a woman become incredibly attractive. And from that place, you begin to attract a consciousness of a man that can see who you are, can really feel who you are as you are rested in being who you truly are, which is love, versus all the patterns and the contortions and the layers on top. So it's a breakthrough in for yourself ultimately.
It sounds totally delicious, and I would love to be there. I have a soulmate already for 17 years, so but I totally do believe that the relationships we attract are an exact mirror of our relationship with ourselves. Yeah. So this is very important, what you're saying, what you're doing. It sounds fantastic. For people who want to know more about it, go to kuteblackson.com. Yes?
Or actually directly, the manbreakthroughexperience.com, themanbreakthroughexperience.com. And there's a great video on there that kind of overviews the seminar, and whoever feels called can register there.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Kute, it has been... go ahead.
And we're doing something very special right now, which is anyone that might sign up and just mention your name or through your link, you'll get to bring a guest with you. So just make sure you mention your name.
So we got the link right down here below the video. So go ahead and register for that. It's a beautiful thing. And Kute, I just so love your spirit. That's the word. I love your spirit. I love who you are, what you've been through, what you have faced within yourself, which comes through in your light. And I just really appreciate that you were here for this conversation. Thank you so much.
It's been great being here. Thanks for having me.
A pleasure.